All right. I'm going live again. I'm back. This is Bobby. Another episode of Martial Arts Movie Monday. It's a late edition. Meant to do it earlier today. Got sidetracked with life. Things going on. Things have been busy already, man. And if you notice behind me, the weirdness behind me, it's looking more and more like a horror show because we got Freddy over here. But right before the show, I walk in to sit down and do the show. And this one's lovely head has fallen off. The helmet, which is now laying over here, the headpiece that's attached fell. It broke somehow. So I walk in, the helmet's laying on the ground. So I didn't end up grabbing my uniform. So I put my coonskin hat, a Davy Crockett hat that I've had since I was a little kid. I just threw it on there. So that's why, if you look, there's a very bizarre headless snow trooper back here. Has nothing to do with the show, but I figured I'd address it because it's very obvious, and some people might look at it and go, "What's going on over there?" Well, that's what happened, which is also why I didn't get anything on that I would plan to. I wanted to try to put on not a karate uniform top today, but something else that was a little closer to what we're talking about. But if you haven't been on the show before we get into that, or been to this show before, Martial Arts Movie Monday, I dive into something in my collection back here. I have a whole lot of karate, martial arts flicks of some sort. Probably about of each one of the little sections. Like if this over here is a section, right? Probably about 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of those sections at the top are DVDs, and then sprinkled through. When you get down to down this level here, down are all Blu-rays all the way across. So there's various martial arts movies sprinkled in there as well. If you don't know my system, we've talked about it on the Hollywood Matrimonial Live show. I'm not going to go into it, but we're driving my wife nuts. But these are actually alphabetized in genre. All the DVDs are genre: horror, martial arts, sci-fi, comedy, drama, musical, whatever. Then all the Blu-rays are alphabetized as just Blu-ray. Don't ask me why. That's just how it's set up. But anyway, so today we're diving into an old trilogy that we've actually talked about on this show before, but not the movies itself. There was an Amazon scandal, not really scandal, but just hubbubaloo that involved this movie. We've now circled back to it. I'll tell that story too before the show's over. But today we are going to be talking about the popular series Missing in Action trilogy with Chuck Norris, the Canon film series. I'm not going to go into a lot of actually behind the scenes stuff on this movie because there's 3 of them. So we're going to just talk about the 3 movies, kind of my connection, because these are ones that I actually watched a couple of them. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It's already late. I'm tired. Been a long day. There's a couple of them I watched pretty much on heavy rotation when I was younger. And these aren't normal movies that I would classify as straight up martial arts, especially the first one. The second one is the second and third get a little more of the vintage Chuck Norris martial arts ass kicking. The first one is straight up more the guns and the military stuff. If you don't know the Missing in Action series, this is essentially Chuck Norris's Rambo series. His character is a little more, I don't want to say patriotic. He's a little more, I don't know the difference. Where Rambo's character is kind of felt shunned from the Vietnam War and felt like an outcast and anger and bitter, and he's dealing with PTSD and all those kind of things. But he's still a man of conviction and his government and his country and that kind of thing. But he's always fighting against his government. Where this one, the Missing Action series, is more a man who he's dealing with PTSD as well from being a prisoner in a POW, but he's also standing up against the government to rescue people. And this kind of series is pretty much, every movie is pretty much the same. The same idea. What's interesting about this series, and I didn't know this for years, especially when I was a kid, because the first Missing in Action came out in 1984, right? Missing Action 2 came out 1985, and 3, I think, jumped ahead, 88. So it was a few years later. But what's interesting about it is Missing Action 1 and 2 were shot around the same time, or like back to back. They thought Missing in Action, the original film, which was supposed to be part 2, from my understanding, they thought it was a better movie. It got released first, became a success, so then they went back and released the second one. The reason this is interesting is because the second movie, Missing Action 2, the beginning, is a prequel. So let's jump through the story and we'll talk about it. If you want to watch them in actual order, you actually should watch Missing in Action 2, then Missing in Action, then Missing in Action 3. But we'll talk about those. But let's talk about it in the order of them released. Missing in Action came out. Chuck Norris was already a big action star. He's already become, nowadays, if you don't know who Chuck Norris is, you're either, because you're so young, you came after the Chuck Norris era, but you probably know the name of some part, mostly from the memes and the memes or memes or whatever they call them, and the Chuck Norris facts. They become iconic and legendary. Excuse me. About the only thing he's done in the last few years outside of some commercials, like he's in a QT commercial now that's pretty funny. I went to QT the other day at the gas station, and there was a poster, and I hadn't seen the commercial yet, so I didn't know he was doing promos for it. But there's a poster of Chuck Norris holding a taquito, and I'm like, "Is that Chuck Norris?" And I had to look at it, and then I realized there's a commercial too, and he's helping promote their food thing that they have there. Anyway, but let's get back to this. So when I was a kid, like a lot of kids back in my time, we played guns and stuff like that. Nowadays you don't get as much of that, and the guns that you get, most of them are like painted in pink and orange and green and whatever, to make sure that anybody knows that they're not real weapons, which is smart. When I was a kid, that didn't happen. Guns looked real, the toy guns. The closest thing to trying to make it look fake was put a little red cap or paint the tip of the gun red so you'd know it's fake. But usually by that time it's too late. So anyway, we played a lot of guns. So when I discovered Missing in Action, I already liked Chuck Norris. And I'm actually always been a little more partial to Chuck Norris as a martial artist, action star, even before Bruce Lee. Chuck Norris is the one I discovered first, because my dad watched a lot of his movies, Breaker, Octagon, Force of One, and of course, Return of the Dragon with him and Bruce Lee, which is kind of his debut. And so I had discovered the Missing in Action movie, and it was just because it was Chuck Norris. This one didn't really have any kind of martial arts impact on me. Upon revisiting it, I didn't realize that this one had like little to no martial arts in it, because you just think it really wasn't until later Chuck Norris movies like Invasion USA and some of that stuff where he was straight guns and got away from as much martial arts, but then he would circle back to it. But Missing Action is still a great movie. It actually holds it pretty well. But it's basically follows an ex-POW who is being accused of war crimes and all this stuff. And Vietnam is saying they don't have any POWs over there. And so he decides to investigate, and he's having flashbacks of when he was a POW and all the stuff that happened to him. And he ends up going back over there by himself. Him with a one-man army goes over there to rescue the POWs and bring them back and whatnot. So it's pretty self-contained. Watching it, you can't really tell that it's a second movie, right? It's so well put together. Like there's flashbacks, but not in a way at the time you would have known. I honestly thought forever that they made this one, then they went and shot another one. No idea that they both existed at the same time. So Missing in Action, it's the less martial arts movie, like almost non-existent martial arts in this movie. But I think that was by design. I think Chuck Norris wanted to make a military thing. It was kind of to honor the POWs and stuff. That was always his ideals when making this series. And this is one of the. Chuck Norris had a few franchises, if you will. He had Missing Action franchise. He had obviously had Walker Texas Ranger TV show, which was kind of spun out of Lone Wolf McQuade. They're not the same character, but the Texas Ranger into that series. He had the dual Delta Force movies. He's in the Expendables too. He's not actually he's just part of that franchise, that one movie, which was super awesome when he popped up. So anyway, so Missing Action 1984 was the first one that came out, but it is not the first one in the story. Let's circle back to this one. Had the most impact on me of all. Missing in Action 2, The Beginning. This movie was the one that was probably the heaviest rotation of all the movies I watched as a kid, of action movies. It was me and my best friend. I don't even know why we watched this together or how it happened or if he had seen it and then I saw it. I remember us watching it a few times together. But Suntek Ho or however you say his name, I believe he's passed on now. I believe he played Colonel Yin. Is that right? Yeah, Colonel Yin. He was the colonel in the Vietnam camp. In this one, you see Braddock, who's Chuck Norris plays, Colonel Braddock, James Braddock. In this one is when he gets captured and becomes a POW. He wasn't even out in the field in the jungles fighting. He was kind of hitching a ride on a helicopter with some soldiers to wherever they were going. They got shot down. They all got captured. So this is telling the story of why he has PTSD from being a POW in this one and why he's on trial for war crimes. It's all from this movie. This is the movie where all of that happens. There's flashbacks in this movie, in the first one, that aren't actually in this scene. I was thinking maybe they used them, but no, there's a couple of scenes that don't have anything to do with each other. So I assume it was just, hey, this happened as well, which is fine. But this one actually offers up more fighting. It's a great movie. It's another strong addition to the franchise, in my opinion. They had two different directors. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But this one, because he's a POW, he doesn't have a gun most of the time. So anytime he has to do anything, or he fights. But the big thing, there's not any really great martial arts fighting at all, really. They're pretty basic in this particular film. But there's a fight scene at the end of the movie between Braddock and Colonel Yin that was a mainstay for me and my best friend. I was a martial arts guy. I was training when we were kids. I started Taekwondo when I was 9 years old. I teach today. So by 84 or it was after that, when this 85 when this came out, it was after that. Obviously, we got involved in it. But I was already in martial arts, so I was far from a great martial artist then. I wasn't a fighter yet. I was a fighter in class, but you know what I mean. I'm still a little kid. And I had to be at least 4th, 5th grade by that point. My best friend was the exact opposite. He did no martial arts. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't the guy, but he was aggressive. So he always was one of those kids and he's probably an adult the same way. If we played anything, he always wanted to be like the coach or the manager or the boss or the supervisor or whatever, the general. He always had to be in charge of everything. He was a year older than I am. And then all the other people we hung out with were younger than both of us. So it was always like he was the president, I was the vice president. He was the general, I was the colonel. And it always was like this hierarchy. I was the muscle because I could do the fight. He was the brains of the operation. He wasn't any smarter than me. I don't know how this happened, but it's just what happened. But we would recreate versions of this when we're out playing guns. We were running around the whole neighborhood. We had a plethora of guns, bazookas and pistols and shotguns and machine guns, and we had an arsenal of toy guns that was the pride of the neighborhood between me and him. And I would always be Braddock because I was a karate guy. He's half Mexican, half white. He would play Colonel Yin because he would imitate Yin style. So Yin in the movie, he kind of does this fight thing where he does this with his hands. And so my friend, anytime we fought, and while we were playing guns and stuff, it didn't matter if we were pretending to a Vietnam thing, if it was a futuristic thing, whatever was happening, while we were playing guns, if one of us didn't get gunned down or get shot or have to die, because I also used to love to die. I used to love to get shot because I was early on. Obviously, it's why I went into stunt work for a while, but I loved getting shot or getting blown up because I love getting throwing myself around, and it also helped me in the future of my martial arts because I immediately got over the fear of falling, so I could throw myself and break falls and jumps and spins and flips and do all the different things because I was doing it as a kid. I would purposely run out in front of a group of guys that knew I was going to get gunned down while we were playing. Also, I could do the gunshot stuff and throw myself and flip myself and bounce and whatever. But anytime we played anything, when we get in a fight, he would start doing this thing every single time. And as a matter of fact, last night I finished watching these movies and I texted him and I said, "Hey man," I said I was watching Missing in Action 2, and I thought of you with Sun Tek Ho, and he just responded. He just responds with, as I told my wife, I said, "Watch this," and he responds like, Sun Tek Ho, as AKA Colonel Yin. So he remembered too, and without missing a beat, knew Colonel Yin and everything. But this one, that was my backstory for this movie. But this movie is a great little action movie. It makes the first one a better movie because it gives you kind of the backstory of what he went through. It's also got the big memorable scene where Chuck Norris, they string him up upside down and they put a bag on his head because they're torturing him, but the bag has a rat in it and he's vobbling around. I used to love it when I was a kid because I thought, oh my God, this is the craziest thing I ever saw. It's so not. But blood filling up the bag, and you're like, all of a sudden he stops shaking. You're like, oh my God, Chuck Norris is dead, or this thing is eating his face off. They take the bag off, and he's got the rat in his mouth, and he killed it and biting it. And that's how he survives. So he's got cuts all over him. And I did read I read somewhere about it where it was like at the time, Chuck Norris said something like, they were trying to make it work and do whatever, and he was like, just get a real dead rat. And so he's like, he had a real dead rat in his mouth, supposedly. I don't know if that was accurate or not, but he's like, he's so stupid. He could have got like some kind of disease or something from it. So anyway, so that's Missing Action 1 and 2. So in reality, we have number 1 that came out first, number 2 that came out after it. But in reality, you should watch 2 and it leads into 1. They're far enough apart that they still are standalone films by themselves. This just happens after this one, which is how it should have been released in the first place. But me, I like watching things the way they were released, just for the fun of it anyway. So going into the third one. Third one's a little different animal. Braddock, Missing in Action 3. This one, I believe if I read somewhere at one point that this was Chuck Norris's favorite of the series. You can tell this one had a little more depth to it, because the first one is Braddock is just going to save these POWs to prove that they're there, to get them out of there and shove them down the throat of the Vietnam government who's denying they're there, and for the POWs, and it's kind of a tribute to the people that were left behind. Missing Action 2 was Braddock's story and what he went through, as well as trying to save himself. So it was kind of straightforward, but more about honoring the POWs. This one jumps ahead into the years later, the communist Vietnam stuff. Let me see. I'm trying to find out. It's one of like the beginning of it. It's like I think the U.S. embassy or whatever. And it's during Vietnam and the big uprise, and they're destroying the embassy, so they're trying to clear out. And apparently, Braddock has his wife there, who's a Vietnamese lady. I guess he married at some point between part 1 and this one. And so they get separated, and she gets, or we think she gets killed. And so then it jumps years later, and I'm talking like 12 years later, like a pretty jump time period between the two. And he's contacted by a priest who says, hey, we've got these people, these kids, or these people that are being held hostage, and it's still prisoners of war at this camp, but this time they're children. It says, hold on, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of abused children in the Vietnam camp or whatever. And so, but what he finds out is this guy tells him that his wife is still alive. And from the beginning of the movie, the way they set it up and what they did, she's still alive. Because they purposely did this whole thing where there's like a switcheroo of jewelry or something because somebody else stole something. So then they ID her by that, it's not her already. So it's coming back. But now he has a son. So apparently she was pregnant at this time. And he didn't know anything about this son. So it's been 12 years. He doesn't believe him, but he goes in, decides he has to go check it out. So he goes in. This time, this is a Chuck Norris just kicking ass. There's a little more karate stuff in this one, but also a lot more. I thought there was a little more brutality in this one. Not in a bad way, not graphically, but just there was a little more because of the dealing with the children, and Braddock is just pissed off because this is a personal pissed off Braddock. These two, this is Braddock struggling to find his place through PTSD and his recoveries and trying to save Americans. This one is him trying to survive being captured while taking care of his men and the struggles just to survive. These are just him surviving. That's all they are, helping others and surviving. This one is a pissed off Braddock. This is an angry man. He's mad because he's found out he's got a son. His wife's been alive this whole time. He feels like he betrayed her because he thought she was dead, so he moved on. She's been out here being tortured or whatever the case is all these years. And so he's going to make everyone that exists pay. And he does. So, and it's interesting too. This one is also Aaron Norris, Chuck Norris's brother. He actually he directed this one. He was stunt coordinator on the other ones. He's done a lot of those to his movies through the years. But this time he directed this one as well. I believe Chuck Norris wrote this one too. Am I right? Yep, Chuck Norris co-wrote it with somebody else. So this one was clearly, look at that. Oh, sorry. This one's clearly a little personal. I believe Chuck Norris even has said this was his favorite of the franchise. Or maybe what he said that, I don't know. But anyway, it was the last in the series. It kind of bummed me out. I would love to see more Braddock. I'd even like to see Chuck Norris's Braddock now, like kind of like Sylvester Stallone did, is go back and revisit some of the older characters like his age now, where they find out that maybe they're still prisoners that have been there all these years, whether it's in Vietnam or somewhere else. They come to him and say, look, we know you've rescued all these hostages. We need your help. Like your son, who was, he can be grown up, or whatever. He can be a soldier himself and say that he's been captured and they need your help. And he does his thing again, one more time. He showed in Expendables 2. He can still kick some butt and shoot some guns. I know Chuck Norris doesn't act anymore, and I know he's in his 70s, but so is Stallone, and I've seen him. He's still in great shape. So why not? But anyway, that's the Missing Action series. They're not the typical martial arts flick that I would probably talk about that focuses on tons of martial arts, but because of Missing in Action 2, the beginning, I have a personal connection. I have a love for Chuck Norris in general, all things Chuck Norris, but also a personal connection with Missing in Action 2 in my upbringing because, I got a lot of martial arts fight practice with my friend, even though he's not a martial artist, but because we would beat the crap out of each other. And for anybody that's a martial artist that knows when you're playing or fighting or training with somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, they have no control. So when we fought, there was no playing. He really would kick the crap out of me. And because I could take it, I thought it was awesome. So I'd get kicked or punched in the face or whatever, and I'd hit him back. And I would always be the one that's being nice and controlled, but still hitting him. He was hitting me full force. So I guess I can kind of give him some credit for me being able to get in the ring and fight and do stuff and used to getting hit because I was getting hit all the time while we were playing as Braddock and Colonel Chin. So anyway, actually all of these, not all of them, they're all on Blu-ray, obviously, because I have them. Shout Factory, nope, she's not here to do it. Shout Factory really, did y'all see this thing move down? I don't know when it moved down, but now it's tilted. This thing may fall off at any moment. I just happened to look over the camera and saw it. But Shout Factory put out Missing in Action 3 some time ago, so you can grab it still. And I actually picked these up on discount a while back, too. If you don't know the story, I had Missing in Action 1, and I had Missing in Action 3. I about found this one for like $5 a long time ago, bought it. Shout Factory sent me this one, and I'm like, I need Missing in Action 2. Because this show, I was starting the show, I realized I didn't have my collection complete, so I needed it for that reason. But also, I knew I was going to be doing these shows. I had just started doing these shows. And so just a funny Amazon story, and then we'll wrap this up. I went online. I ordered Missing in Action 2 on Blu-ray. It comes in. They sent me I think it was a 2-pack movie or a 3-pack movie of Missing in Action 1, 2, and something else. Some other Chuck Norris movie, I think, or something. Which normally you think that's kind of cool, but it's not cool because I already had 1 and 3. I just wanted 2. That's all I needed. So I just told them, hey, you sent me the wrong one. Please send me just the 1. Finally got somebody to send me the second one. Returned the other one. They got it back. Excuse me. Shipped me the same 2 or 3-pack, whatever it was, again. I'm like, what? So I filed another thing a minute. Hadn't sent it back yet. I was waiting for them to tell me to send it back. Got a hold of a guy. He looked and went back and forth. I kept saying, oh, no, it was not replaced right. Oh, it's not labeled right. Oh, we're going to have to cancel the complete order because we don't know what it is, and they'll probably send you the same one. So I moved on. I'm like, I'll just go find it somewhere else. About a week later, the right one shows up. And, there was a third time they sent me the 2-3-pack movie 3 times. And after the third time was when I talked to them. And so now I've returned 2, but I still had 1. And then the right one showed up finally out of nowhere. So I think right around the beginning of this show, the early episodes of the show, we gave away that pack, and that's what it's from. So that's the Amazon back and forth just to try to get a stupid copy of the one in the franchise that was the most important to me in my childhood, and me and my best friend beating the snot at each other as Braddock and Colonel Yin, which Colonel Yin, thank you, Sunteko, for the great fight scene of using this move that my friend still uses to this day. When we act like we're fighting, his hands do this, and we're ready for action. That's it for today for another episode of Martial Arts Movie Mondays. Thank you for joining into kind of late show. I apologize for the creepy head thing falling back here, and for having a headless snowtrooper during the show. Don't forget, come back tomorrow for all new episode of TV Tuesdays where me and the missus, we have all kinds of stuff to dive into that we've been watching during the holidays and whatnot. And then we'll be back here on Sunday for another episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live, right here on this YouTube channel, as well as on our Facebook page. We simulcast. We'll be talking about Just Mercy, 1917, Like a Boss, and Underwater. So I know for a fact we'll at least talk about 2 of those. Hopefully we'll get all 4 in like we're planning. I think it'll happen this time. And then we still have some new contests coming up soon. Still giving away copies of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, digital copies on our website at hollywoodmatrimony.com. So make sure you head over there and check us out on the Twitter at HollywoodMatter, M-A-T-R, and the Instagram at Hollywood Matrimony, and of course the Facebook Hollywood Matrimony. That's pretty much it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this out. I'm hoping this year to do a lot of martial arts giveaways on this show through some different things I'm discussing. So hopefully I'll have some martial arts movies to give back to you guys, the fans, or posters or stuff like that, which I may have some of those sooner than later. So just make sure you hit the subscribe button below or hit the little orb over here and check out whatever trailer popped up this week. And again, thank you for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. And don't forget to always keep your hands up and be nice to one of each other. Peace and love, my friends. Peace and love.